So, welcome everyone to EV Ireland. Today, we are going to talk about a first topic of a series of driving an EV abroad. So, today we'll start with the UK because that's the closest to Ireland. I'm Guillaume. We have Jan-Bart here. We have Nick
Hello.
and we have Inge. All of us have been driving in some extent abroad, especially in the UK. So, Jan-Bart, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi guys. My name is Jan-Bart Spang. I'm a Dutch living in Ireland. I've been driving a Renault Zoe since 2014. Yeah, long time. I've taken my Zoe abroad probably about 4 or 5 times as I drive to my parents for summer holidays, but also as part of a charity trip with Craig from the Renault Zoe Owners Club, which was great fun, and also all around Ireland.
Great. Inge, of course, is our is my co-host on this channel, so everybody knows him. Inge, have you been traveling much abroad?
And not in my own Model S, but I rented a Tesla Model 3 long range on the Turo platform in San Francisco last year for about 3 weeks, and drove down to LA, then to Las Vegas, the Grand Canyon, and as far as Page, Arizona, before returning via Las Vegas, Death Valley, and Yosemite. And that was about 3,800 kilometers.
Very exciting trip. And so finally we have Nick. So EV Nick, that's how we know you, of course, from your channel. And so you, unlike all of us, you are an actual resident in the UK.
Yeah. So I've got two EVs. So I've got Renault Zoe, which is the lifestyle, which got me into EVs, and also started my YouTube channel. And then I've also got a BMW i3. But then I've obviously done a lot of promotional stuff with my YouTube channel. So I've been to Belgium, and I've also been all the way to Frankfurt in an EV. And I actually rented a car on Turo again in America, but I did Hawaii. So you couldn't drive very far because Hawaii's not very big. It's just an island. So
Let's start with, well, if you talk about the UK, we have to think about Northern Ireland, of course, because it's a bit of a special place regarding infrastructure. Jan-Bart, do you want to tell us a bit about Northern Ireland, maybe?
Yeah, so Northern Ireland, I've been in Northern Ireland a good few times. I've been to Enniskillen. I've done all the Northern Irish counties as part of the photographic rally, and the last time I was up in Northern Ireland was for a bit of a holiday. It was in 2018. I went down to Lisburn. Northern Ireland is indeed a bit of a special place. We won't mention the B word. But in Northern Ireland, what we have is Northern Ireland was one of the first places in Europe that actually had a cross-border infrastructure. So it was one of the places where the European Union was doing an experiment with having one company run the infrastructure in two different countries. So as a result, Northern Ireland actually, most of the chargers there are run by ESB eCars. I think the maintenance was done by a Northern Ireland company, and I think that's fallen a bit behind due to the privatization of the infrastructure in the Republic. And I think ESB cars actually don't have a clear line of funding on the maintenance side of things in Northern Ireland. But the one RFID card for ESB cars works in both Northern Ireland and the Republic, so it makes traveling abroad essentially really easy. Yeah, but over the last few years it's gotten harder because there's no real new chargers being installed, and the ones that are there are not very well maintained. Hopefully that'll change.
Yeah, they're a bit stuck there, I believe.
They are.
Nothing has happened, really.
No, it hasn't, and I think it has partially to do with the politics side of things, but also like I said, there's no clear guidance as to where the infrastructure needs to go, and without a clear line of funding, it's left to private companies to put in a network, and they just haven't.
hopefully the new government funding system for charge points, I think it's 10 million quid that's just coming for the UK. Hopefully that should give it a much needed boost.
It should, yeah, because like Northern Ireland is absolutely perfect from a size perspective. It's a very small geographical area. They actually do have a lot of charges for the geographical area, so it's easy enough to drive around, providing that the charges work.
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
there any other networks up there?
Not large ones. I think the likes of Asda have a few polar points up there, and I think there's one Ecotricity charger at the IKEA in Belfast, which I have used a long, long time ago when it was still free to use.
Do they have pod point at all?
I think there might be a few of them around, yeah, but I honestly don't know. Like the only two types of chargers that I've used in Northern Ireland are the ESB e-car chargers and the Ecotricity charger in the IKEA in Belfast, just for the novelty.
It's interesting that you talk about Ecotricity. I think it could be a first subject because they've been around for a long time. I have to share my first international experience was actually my first EV I bought in February 2014 in Oxford, and I drove from Milton Keynes all the way to Cork. And in that time, Ecotricity was pretty much the only possibility. So I know they've been through a rough patch in the meantime. What do you guys think about Ecotricity?
From what I've heard is that they seem to be sort of just stuck. They've put the infrastructure in with the help of government funding, and now they're just leaving it.
The difficult situation for Ecotricity is when they originally first started, they used to just install a 3-pin socket, just a normal domestic house socket at the motorway service stations. That was what originally, when they got the contracts, they just put literally a granny cable socket in. And then as the faster chargers came in, say like 22 kilowatts high chargers, they then replaced it with them chargers, tethered socket chargers. And then when rapid chargers came out, they then had the money to put the rapid chargers in. And for a very, very, very long time, they were free. Even with the rapids, they were completely free. So they had no money coming in. They installed all these chargers. They were basically effectively using the government grant money to fund the free chargers. And in a way, kickstart the EV revolution in the UK. The problem is that infrastructure now is very old. They were the very first rapid chargers, and the newer chargers, the new 150, they go to 150 kilowatt chargers on motorways, which are extremely expensive, are going to require new electric cables to the chargers. So it's not just changing the charger. They've got to upgrade the wires to the charger because they won't be powerful enough to run 150 kilowatts. Or do they just replace it with a 50? And that's, for them, a very difficult decision. And also the fact that they're not making it's a loss leader. They're not making any money out of those chargers. I mean, I don't know about Jan, but I think I can count the amount of times I've paid to use an Ecotricity charger, because if they've got no connection, they go free. And I think I've paid 2 times ever for an Ecotricity charger. They usually never charge me because they've got a communication fault.
Well, on one of the last times I was over in the UK, I drove. I got stuck with the ferry on the Wales side, so the ferry there got cancelled, and I had to divert to my sister-in-law in Farnborough. And so we landed in Harwich. So I drove from Harwich to Farnborough. That was probably about 3 charges. None of them were free. Then I drove from Farnborough all the ways up to Holyhead, which was probably another 8 chargers. None of them were free. What actually ended up happening to me is because the account that I had linked to their payment system, they took a deposit sort of like as a security thing every time I charged. So by the time I was in Holyhead, I probably had done about 12 charges, and I think they took 10 or 12 pounds each. And I actually ended up without money on that account, and I had to swap accounts halfway through in order to actually get the Holyhead. But in fairness, other than just one, they all worked, which was a novelty. Ecotricity has been my main EV network when I'm in the UK. I know there's a ton of other ones which we'll cover later, but my main experience in the UK has been Ecotricity, and primarily, obviously, with my Renault Zoe, so with the fast AC, and they have been pretty much faultless, to be honest. They were there was one or two instances where they were free, which was nice, but the vast majority I have been, for the last while anyway, I've been paying for them, which is absolutely fine as long as you're aware of that security hold.
Actually, you know, talking about electricity, if you drive, so for anyone in Ireland looking to buy an EV themselves and drive it back, a very common way is to go to Fishguard if you want to travel to Rosslare. And if I remember well, I took that route a couple of years ago, and it's still Ecotricity that is providing the fast charge points across Wales. Is there any other main network going through Wales now, or any plans?
Yes, there's a lot of Polars. So Polar do quite a few charges in Wales, but motorway service stations, Ecotricity have an exclusive contract with all the motorway service stations in the UK. So if you stop at a motorway service station, Ecotricity own the rights to deliver electricity at that service station. The only exception to this is if you're a Tesla owner, because Tesla went through a long-winded legal battle with Ecotricity, and they came to a settlement where Tesla can put chargers on the same site. But if you're wanting to charge anything CCS, AC on a motorway, then you've got to go for one of them. But Polar are very clever. Polar always put their chargers junction after an Ecotricity service station. So as long as you're willing not to get off at a service station, you get off at the next stop. They're usually at a very nice Holiday Inn, hotel, right around the back of the hotel. Plug in, charge, and you can use the hotel facilities like coffee, tea, or you can just use the charger and go.
Yeah, I noticed that. I think they have a few chargers in the south of Wales and the same in around the north. I was going to actually, on my next trip over, I was going to try and visit Polar because I've heard good things about them, specifically their reliability.
Yeah, and they work. See, the only issue for CCS cars is they don't work. They do work on Ecotricity, but they have a very high failure rate. If you're a Zoe and you're using Ecotricity, as long as the charger's showing as it's working and the cable's not been smashed up and stuff like that, it works 100% time. But a CCS car, you can stop at Ecotricity. Charger could look fine. The comms could be fine. You plug it in, and there's a communication error with the CCS, and that's just because the old chargers that Ecotricity use. Is it ABB chargers?
DBT.
DBT. So yes, they are old DBT chargers, the old French chargers, the big white boxes with the two cables at the side, and they've been modified to work with CCS. They're not CCS chargers, and that's why they don't work properly. So Polar are dedicated their own made chargers. And I have never had a failed charge on CCS on a Polar charger, ever.
When I drove my BMW i3 in the UK, it was actually unplanned. I have to say, I had one of those issues. I had a ferry going from France to Ireland, and 24 hours before, big news, the ferry is cancelled. The next ferry is in 2 weeks. You have to go through the UK, and I have to plan a trip like this in 24 hours. So I had to go to Fishguard. That was like 18 months ago, and I read about those issues with CCS, so I was a bit worried, but I didn't get any problem anyway with the i3 on Ecotricity. I use also one, I think it's called Instavolt, and it was quite good. It was brand new, I think, at the time.
Instavolt are great unless you have an AC car.
Oh
no!
Because they only have Chatham on CCS, don't they? And those tritium chargers.
Yeah, the Australian tritium-made chargers. They're only DC, which is a bit of a vein to Zoe owners because they're not. If the tritium chargers are 150 kilowatt, yes, I could understand the argument of not having AC. But when the chargers are only 50 kilowatt, there's no argument not having an AC point on there at 43 kilowatts. There's just no argument in my mind. I can fully get the argument on why you wouldn't put AC on a 150 kilowatt charger. That makes perfect sense, but not on a 50 kilowatt.
Even a 22 kilowatt plug on a 150 kilowatt charger would be fine. Yeah, there's one of the Irish networks, EasyGo, also use the same brand chargers, and I have a fun. I like to remind the owner of the company every once in a while not to forget about Zoe owners.
So we talked about Wales. We talked about Northern Ireland. Scotland has a bit of a special network because they put a lot of money. The government put a lot of money in the network there. I had an experience once, and I thought it was pretty dense at the time compared to the rest of the country.
Scotland have ChargePlace Scotland, and it's basically a massive government fund. The Scottish government are very, very pro-green. Annoyingly, Scotland's got all the benefits that I wish I had here in England. It's very, very, very irritating looking across the border and seeing how proactive their government is. But their back-end system, so you've got ChargePlace Scotland, which is the front-end system, the chargers, the card, you buy a card, £10 card, lasts forever. The card that you have in the back-end system, it's all run by Polar in the background. So it's actually CYC, which is Charge Your Car, which is owned by Polar. So the back end, the software issue, the billing, the touching of the card, that's all handled by Polar, which is it's owned by it's back end system CYC, which is then owned by Polar, and then Polar is then owned by BP.
Have you guys been traveling into Scotland in the past?
I've done Scotland, so I delivered a car in Scotland. We didn't use any Scottish chargers, so we went right. The last charger we used was an Ecotricity charger just literally on the Scottish border, and that got us all the way to our destination without any problems, because the destination we were going to was a customer who had a charge point fitted the day we got there, so that was fine. So I've not done a lot in Scotland. I know a lot of people who have. And they swear by the network that they use a lot of Evolt chargers. A lot of their rapid chargers are Evolt chargers, which is a Scottish, I think it's a Scottish company themselves. So they have a lot of them. But yes, everyone I know in Scotland, I've never heard them complain. The only time they ever complain in Scotland about the network is the back end system. They never complain about the actual chargers.
And also, let's not forget that the energy is very green in Scotland, so everything you charge from there is made of a lot of renewables.
You did a trip in Scotland, though, didn't you, Guillaume?
Yeah.
Was that in an EV, or was that? I think you started in an EV and you switched to a classic ICE or something like that, wasn't it?
I did. Oh yes, yeah. One of my friends was living in Derby and as Ladas. So I did drive
Ladas.
But actually, yeah, that I did a trip from Cork through Northern Ireland. Mm-hmm. I took the ferry to Kenry and I went all the way up. I can't remember exactly where I went, but then I drove down to Derby, and then back through Wales. It was with a Nissan Leaf 30 kilowatt-hour battery.
Yeah, it was still with your Leaf. I remember the photos. The countryside was amazing. It is definitely on my to-do list to go to Scotland, but it's a big world out there in limited time.
Well, here's one for you. Why don't we all do the 500 around Scotland?
North Coast 500. That's the one. That's the one that's on my my to-do list. It's basically 500 miles along the north coast of Scotland. It's the Scottish equivalent of the Irish Wild Atlantic Way. It's meant to be absolutely amazing if you can stand the midges.
It's beautiful, but there's not many charges on the coast route.
That's okay. That's just the challenge. It's fine. I think I saw Chris Ramsey did it. I think he was the first guy to do it in a Nissan Leaf, I think. And ever since he's been able to do it, I was there going, we should do it in a Zoe. Should be no problem.
Yeah, the question is, the AC or DC? That's the thing. Is it better to drive a Zoe when you do that trip?
Probably, actually, yeah.
So we haven't talked about England just yet. There are many more providers, right, Nick? Has it working?
Yeah, there's loads. So there's Polar, there's Charge Your Car, there's Genie Point, there's London, Source London, there's Instavolt, there's Engenie, there's Ubertricity, Podpoint, ESB, Shell, Zero. There's some tiny. There's loads. Oh, Alpha Power. There's one. I'm just trying to think. There's literally more. Fastnet. They've just come over here.
Yes.
There's literally so many networks. It's unbelievable how many are popping up. But the ones I've got first-hand experience of, I've used an Instavolt. So Instavolt, the only redeeming feature of Instavolt not having AC is if you're a DC driver, they're great because you tap your card, done. That's it.
And they have contactless bank cards, haven't they? And I think that's one of the things in England is it all new chargers have to have a contactless bank card reader fitted?
All rapid chargers have to have
rapid chargers. Okay.
Yeah, so all rapid chargers have to have contactless card readers on them, which Instavolt have always been doing. Polar are not required to fit them to their old chargers, but have anyway.
I noticed that. I read that somewhere.
Yeah, so Polar have decided to retrofit all their old chargers with contactless card readers for debit cards, iPhone payments, Google Pay, whatever your preferred method of touch and go pay, they're retrofitting all their old chargers.
Very good.
And BP are they're currently installing 150 kilowatt rapid chargers, and the plan is to fit every single BP petrol station in the whole of the UK.
Wow.
That's quite cool, and it's really cool for people coming from abroad, actually. So it's kind of a point of this discussion.
Oh, we've got Ionity. That's another network in the UK. Yeah.
Because of the density that you describe, because England is very well covered by DC chargers, you can say probably that even with a short range EV, it's quite comfortable to drive in and around England. But are there any black spots still?
Yes. So there's no black spots, so to speak, if you've done a little bit of forward planning on where you're going. If you just drive blind, then you might find yourself, there's a small possibility you might get to an area where you run out. So I live in a area called High Peak. It's literally in the middle of England. There is, it's walking, it's countryside. There's nothing here. There's no shops. There's no reason why you'd normally go here. And because of that, charge companies don't think you need to fit chargers here, because obviously no one comes here to come and see the beautiful countryside and go for a walk. I mean, that would be silly. They'd all want to go to beaches instead, where there's thousands of people. But yeah, they've started to fit a couple of chargers around here. But the problem why it is a blackout zone around here is nothing to do with. I always thought because they didn't want to fit chargers. The actual reason is the electric network is so old because it's so sparsely populated. There is no reason to bring massive high voltage cables through to these little towns and villages because there's only just a couple of houses. So they're having to upgrade the network infrastructure before they can put the chargers in. And they've started to do that in a couple of the towns and little villages around here now.
Any projects on 22 kilowatt AC, because that could suit those infrastructures maybe.
To be honest, most 22 kilowatt AC systems now that are going in are all private developments. So Tesco, for example, little places like that. I think in the UK there's such a business plan for businesses to put chargers in. The UK businesses over here have been very, very savvy, and they've very quickly gone, if we put a 22 kilowatt charger next to our pub and say it's free if you eat in the pub, people will come and eat here. So businesses have been very, very clever about installing infrastructure in their car parks at a charge that you use their infrastructure. So there is quite a lot of them popping up. I've seen quite a few now.
If you're Irish and you come for a holiday in the UK, so people watching us, obviously you want to have as as few charging cards or applications as possible. Would you recommend to have like maybe one or two in particular, or does it probably depends on the car you have as well?
It's going to deeply depend on the car you have, and it's going to deeply depend on the route you're going to take and where you want to stop. If you want to stop at motorway service stations, then you need Ecotricity app straight away. So if you want to stop at if you want a McDonald's and you want a KFC and you want a Costa coffee and you want a Starbucks coffee and you're only going to stop at service stations, then you're going to need an Ecotricity card. And if you've got a CCS car like a Kona or an Ionic that are not terribly reliable on Ecotricity chargers, then just bear in mind that there is a small chance that your car won't charge, and have a second backup charger. Now, if you stop at Polar have a Polar Instant app, it's called. So it's called. There's two apps for Polar. There's Polar and there's Polar Instant. Polar's for their subscription members, which you don't want to subscribe if you come to the UK just for a couple of trips. And then Polar Instant is so you can instantly just get to the charger and use it. Now, they have retrofitted a lot of them with just tap and pay, but just have the app on your phone just in case that the one you get to just saves you get it going on the phone when you get there and trying to get the app. But yeah, and the only thing to warn you, if you do go to a Polar charger in the UK and it's at a hotel Holiday Inn, then when you plugged your car in, go into the hotel lobby and you need to put your registration number into their car parking system. Otherwise, you'll get it'll automate a fine system. Although they'll probably struggle to chase you in Ireland for a fine for parking in their car park.
How much does it cost to charge in the UK?
Charging in the UK can vary greatly. So Ecotricity, the last time I was there, it was something like 35p per kilowatt hour. Was the last time I was there. So that's the only real pricing experience that I have. The other one that I used, I'm trying to think of the name. It was a contactless bank system, but at the time it was the session fee, so it was a fixed price, and I think they've gone per kilowatt hour now as well. And then Polar have their pricing system and that kind of stuff. Yeah, like if you're going abroad just for a holiday, a subscription wouldn't be advisable, I'd imagine.
If you're a Polar Plus member, so a subscription member, I think it's about £8 a month, £7.85 a month. The AC only chargers, so slow chargers, 7 kilowatt, 22 kilowatt, they're 12p kilowatt hour, and then 15p for the 43 50 DCs, and then 150 is 20p. But that's for members, so you'd have to pay £8 to get those prices.
But is it for one? Can you do it for 1 month, or can you? Because I've done that with in Holland for Fastnet.
You can, but if you're an instant, if you use the app, so the app is the second cheapest way of using it. The AC charges are 18p. The semi-rapid, so 50 kilowatt, 43 kilowatt chargers are 25p, and the 150 kilowatts are 35p. If you use the app,
advantage.
Yeah, if you're using contactless cards to tap and go, they charge a slight premium on that. So for 50 kilowatt, 43 kilowatt AC, it's 30p to tap, and it's 40p to tap on the 150 kilowatt chargers.
So the Polar Instant for tourists looks like the best way to do it.
If you're happy to use the app, which is one of the worst to use, it's awful. It's buggy, it crashes, it's a pain in the neck to find chargers, and that's probably why it's cheaper, because you'll just give up and have a temper. But that is the best way of using it, because it's cheaper. But to be honest, paying 30p a kilowatt hour for 43 kilowatt, 50 kilowatt rapid, or 40p for 150 kilowatt charger, it's not a lot, really. It's quite cheap.
It isn't. The one thing on apps, like you're saying, the Polar app is pretty buggy. The Ecotricity app is absolutely so annoying. It's like, first of all, you have to register for the account.
Do you know what? I know, I take it back, because it never crashes. It always works.
No, you're right. It doesn't crash, but from an app design, it's absolutely disastrous, because you have to, I think you have to first identify yourself, obviously, you have to log in. Then you have to tell them your payment method, I think, or is it the charger first? You have to use the QR code on the front of the charger or something like that. Then you have to give them the payment method again every single time. You have to
No,
enter
no,
the
no, no, no,
CVV
no, no.
number.
It remembers your payment method, because there's a great video of me doing it when I went to Thingy. I was like, oh, I need to charge the car, and we're in a rush because we're trying to keep down to a timescale. I'm there plugging it in, I'm getting the app, and I went, oh,
I
for God's
remember.
sakes, I haven't got my card, so then I've got to get my wallet out to get the back
I
of the
remember.
CVC numbers. But
And that's me pretty much every single time I use the app.
But because of Ecotricity, I now know my CFV number on the back of my card off by heart.
See, the thing is like when you have experience with other chargers and other apps, like Fastnet is still my favorite. You give them you log in. Well, you obviously log in automatically. The location service knows where you are. It knows what car you drive because you've told them, and then it'll automatically say, okay, which charger do you want to use? They're numbered 1, 2, 3, or 4. So you type in 2, it knows there's one plug on that charger that you can use. It automatically has it selected. You plug it in and you're done. It's 2 seconds. And then you go to the UK and you're there with cards, and then you have to scan a QR code, and then it just is.
At least if you don't have to order a card and you can just use the app, I think for a holiday you accept it as a user. If you're like, oh, it's just for a few days. Probably if you have to do it every week, and if you're a regular user, you wouldn't accept it as much, So
yeah, see, the one thing I will say is that I have noticed that the charging infrastructure in the UK has gotten better. The first time I was there was in 2015. I came in from Belgium, and because of a very strong headwind, I didn't have enough to get to my first Ecotricity charger, and I had to improvise. And I think I tried probably 3 or 4 car chargers somewhere near Folkestone or something like that, and it was just like I was just about running out when my third attempt actually worked. This last time I ended up in the UK, it was absolutely faultless. I think I had one issue with the mobile phone reception on my mobile phone, not the charger. The charger still had a mobile phone reception, but on my mobile phone, I couldn't get a reliable data connection. So I went to the service station about 20 meters to my left, and I picked up their Wi-Fi.
You did it wrong. You see, when you stop at an Ecotricity charger and you can't have a mobile signal, if you go on your Wi-Fi, the Ecotricity charger has its own Wi-Fi.
And I found that out afterwards.
And the password on it's Ecotricity with an E.
Okay.
Capital E, I think it is from memory. But yeah, it has its own built system. But if you're really lucky, and the Ecotricity charger itself loses its mobile connection, you'll get a free vend.
I've had that. I went to Craig the last time I was over in the UK. I went down to Craig for a cup of coffee, and on the way back, I bumped into one of the free vent service. So I stayed there a little longer than normal.
It's always better when you're getting it free, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Nick, you have a BMW i3. Do you have the Charge Now card? Is it working? Do you know if it's working in?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know the card?
No. Yeah,
it's
no,
BMW's card. It's BMW's.
It's EU wide, isn't it?
Yeah. We say we didn't talk about Brexit, so no, let's not talk about Brexit. So
yeah, that's probably why the UK haven't got it.
Okay.
We've weirdly left the EU. I mean, I don't know how you can leave a continent, but the UK managed to just slice us out somehow.
So okay, well, Charge Now is it's good if you have a BMW anyway. How is it working with Ionity? Is there a good development lately? Are they going a bit everywhere?
So Ionity, there's a few set up at key locations. So there's not loads of them, but to be honest, unless you've got a very, very, very new EV that can handle 150 kilowatt charging, it's pretty much pointless. And unless you're a charge network of those cars, so Mercedes or Ford or Volkswagen ID cars, the price per kilowatt hour for non-members, as in when I say non-members, that means cars that haven't paid for the network. The cost of charging is high. I mean, really ridiculously high. The reason they did that is there was lots of Tesla Model 3 owners whose charging was faster on the Ionity network than it was on the Tesla Supercharger network. And that's because the Tesla Supercharger network couldn't deliver the speeds that the Ionity network had, because we haven't got V3 in the UK. Well, we have now, we've only got it in one key site, but the Ionity network was quicker. So what was happening is the Ionity networks were full of Teslas, and Ionity didn't like the fact that their 4 or 5 bank chargers, sorry, 4 or 6 bank chargers were full of non-Mercedes, non-Ford, non-Volkswagens, and it was almost like, oh well, we've paid for this network, and those lot are using it. They shouldn't be on it, so we'll up the price and get rid of them. That's the reason it was done in my mind. It was to ensure that the network is discounted only for the cars that have paid for the network.
Totally agree with that. And I think it was actually even worse by the fact that they were still, I think it was £8 per session. They had a session fee. So if you had a 75 kilowatt hour Tesla Model 3 long range and you were pretty much empty, that was an absolute bargain.
Yeah, I mean, we used it when we travelled to Europe, and we went in a Jaguar I-Pace, and we used the Ionity network all the way across Europe on that. And you know, in some respects, some charges were expensive and some charges were dear, depending on how empty or full the battery was. But to get those kind of speeds, it's what you've got to weigh up. Are you willing to pay a premium to save yourself 25 minutes of time, or would you rather save a little bit of money and waste 25 minutes of your time walking around a service station? And you know, for us, it was all about get there as quick as possible, try not to miss the channel, you know, the train across the tunnel, and we still missed it, and we were like.
Talking back about Ionity, it looks like the Mango app. So for a while it was quite good, and then there was this 79 cents in Europe, that the Ionity started to charge people with, and there was a question mark around a few apps who had deals before that new pricing plan earlier this year, and it looks like now they are back again into a good pricing. So if I understand well, in Ireland is 40 cents per kilowatt hour, and then there is an overstay fee after an hour. So
it's 45, something like that. Yeah.
This is actually acceptable, especially if you can take the power, of course, but you have availability, because I mean, in Ireland, for example, there are not many of those, and because the other charge points are very busy, they would be cheaper. So sometimes you just don't want to queue, and
yeah. I'll tell you the best thing about the Ionity chat. The best thing, if let's say you have an Ionity partner car, so the new Mercedes EQC, for example, where it's all you just plug in and charge like a Tesla. As soon as you plug it in, it self bills. But the best thing about the car is the car knows the status of the charger, and it also knows if someone's iced the spot. So all Ionity chargers, in the middle of the charger, they have a little car sensor in the middle. So if there's a car parked over it and it's not charging, it knows the space is iced. So it tells the car that that space is iced. So as you're driving there, it's keeping real telemetry. Oh, all these spaces are iced. I need to rejig your route. So it's constantly monitoring the way you're going and where the chargers are. I mean, at the moment, there's not many Ionity chargers, so it can't really redirect you to the next Ionity. But the thing is that they've already pre-thought about this. And I thought that's the first charger I've seen that actually knows it's iced before you've got there. And if you think about how much stress that saves you. Yeah, the idea is when you pull into the Ionity forecourt where the chargers are, it will tell you go to bay number 1. And they're also, the new ones are going to have big halos above them that you'll be able to see them from basically a long way away across the car park. So you'll see these big flashing rings, and the rings will change colour depending on the status of the charger. So green means you can come and use it. Amber means that person's near the end of their charge session, the battery's nearly full. And red just means it's either iced or being used recently.
if anybody wants to come to the UK, is it possible to rent an EV there for a week or two, for instance?
Depends where you go. So we've got Toro, same as pretty much anywhere in the world. So you can rent a car through Toro. My car's actually on Toro. No one's ever rented it, but yeah, it's on Toro, so you can rent it, and you can actually rent my car contactless free, because Toro have integrated with the BMW app to unlock the car and start it remotely with a mobile phone through their app. There is one in the UK where you can rent a car for an hour, half an hour, 2 days. You can rent it for as long as you want.
Teslas you can rent in airports.
Drive.
There used to be a company called White Car that used to rent Teslas, but they've gone bust. There's a couple of other EV rental companies dotted around the UK. There's Free FEV, I think they're called. There's a couple of companies like that, but to be honest, they're all fairly expensive. There is a company that you can rent cars off called EV Easy. You can rent a Zoe off there for a month, but I don't know if you can do it if you've got a European driving license. I don't know if you have to have a UK driving license. That's one's worth looking into. You might be able to just.
If someone were to come over and actually rent your BMW, where again were you based?
Not telling you.
What I was thinking was UFO Drive. So I think they are all over the place in airports. It looks like they have not only Teslas but other models. But I think in Dublin it's only
I've not heard of that one. So that's one I'm going to have to look up.
At the end of the day, probably, I mean, if renting car in the UK might be a bit expensive, as what you're saying, it probably worth it to bring your own EV from Ireland.
If you're coming from somewhere deeper in Europe, then yeah, you probably want to rent one. But if you're coming from Ireland, you shouldn't have any excuse. You lot have all done it. You've lot have all driven over here. It's not hard. It's not going to cost you as much as. In my mind, if you're living in Ireland or you're living in the UK and you're going to Ireland, you should not be flying.
What's the current situation with the networks? Are they expanding? Are you getting more chargers, or is it more or less static?
Oh, it's nuts. I can't keep up with how many chargers there are. It's pretty much every time I look, there's another ton of chargers. I think they've just put a new hub in Milton Keynes. There's a new hub. I think it's got a couple of. It's not even on ZapMap. I've just looked. It's not even on ZapMap yet. But they've just put some 150 kilowatt chargers up in Milton Keynes. Like I said, BP are doing this massive rollout. They're trying to put chargers everywhere. In fact, I've got a little statistic. Hold on, where are we? So in the UK, as of the 7th of June 2020, there is 31,781 connections, which span 11,384 locations.
Wow.
So that's a lot of plugs. And in the last 30 days, there's been 152 new chargers.
Wow.
Just in the last 30 days. So,
but that's what you get when you have about a dozen different companies doing things rather than just one.
Yeah, I think the problem you've got there in Ireland is you've not got any companies that have seen the private infrastructure benefit of that. I mean, over here we've got Tesco have teamed up with Volkswagen and Podpoint. They've done a joint link up. They're installing chargers at every single Tesco superstore that are 100% free. Okay, so where are you going to shop? Are you going to go and shop at your local Sainsbury's or Lidl that hasn't got a charger that you're going to have to pay for? You have to pay for your shopping, and you're going to come out of your car, or you're going to go to your local Tesco where you can do your shopping for pretty much the same price these days because Tesco are trying not to go bust, and get a free charge. And if you've not got a home charger, then you need to look at companies that are going to fit chargers in their car parking. They're not just going to be providing free charging; they're also going to be making EV transition more possible. But I think there's going to be a lot more supermarkets, a lot more businesses that are going to say that installing a charger is a benefit for them. And if any business owners are watching this in Ireland, and you own a hospitality business or a shopping centre, if you're putting a free charger in, you can put the charger you can charge for the charger if you wanted. You can make an app that charges for a charger, but when they show the code, they can redeem that cost against a purchase. The amount of business that you'll see from that will be huge, because people like having free stuff. It's the psychology in your head. You could be paying a lot more for it in the grand scheme of things, but people like to know they've got something for free, something for nothing. And that psychology effect will result in higher businesses turnover. I mean, for me, if I was traveling to somewhere, say I was going to a hotel in my EV, I'm going to pick an EV with a charger. It's just obvious. Why would I pick an EV without a charger? If I'm going to drive 150 miles down to London, I'm not going to stop at a hotel where I then have to go and find a charger. That's hassle. I'm going to stop at the hotel that has a charger at the hotel, so when I wake up in the morning, my car's fully charged and I can carry on with my journey and my day.
It's absolutely true. Most of the times when I was in Holland, that's exactly the case. Like, the hotels would have chargers, and it just makes life so much easier to just be able to walk out of the hotel in the morning to a fully charged car.
Yeah, I mean, I've even rang, like, sometimes I've tried to find a hotel with a charger and I've really struggled, and I've rang the hotel up and I've gone, can I have a ground floor room? And they go, have you got an EV? And I go, yeah. And we've had quite a lot of people who want to ground floor rooms so they can put the charger outside the window. We're thinking of putting chargers in now.
I always make a point when I'm staying at a place that doesn't have a car charger to mention it.
Yeah. I think if you mention it and these businesses are aware that there is a business for that, then they will put it in. But again, what a lot of people who have businesses, they don't own EVs, so they don't understand how little it costs them to charge it up. Now, we don't want rapids at hotels. That would be silly, because you're sleeping there. 3 kilowatt chargers would be enough for a hotel, right? 7 kilowatts,
an outside socket.
Yeah, 7 kilowatts, would be appreciated, but 3 kilowatts fine. But let's say they put some 7 kilowatt chargers outside, and they charge a couple of EVs up. Let's be honest, the majority of EVs, depending on what electricity type they're on, they're not going to be paying more than €7 or €8 for that cost of electricity. If they said to you, the chargers are locked, you have to pay €6 or €7 to use that charger if you're staying at the hotel, you'd pay it because of the convenience of it. But to be honest, if the amount of business that's going to come to them if they give it for free will be a lot more, in my opinion. I mean, I like I said, I always try and pick business. I always try and support businesses that have chargers for patron use.
Yeah, my local supermarket here, a small supermarket, has a free charger, and I have actually spent more time in there now than I would have if that charger wasn't around.
Well, big example, Lidl in the UK, they put rapid chargers in all their supermarkets. You have to pay for them now, but they were originally free. When they first went in, you could just charge on the little chargers, it was free. So I used to stop at the charger for a free charge. Now, one of the conditions was you shopped at Lidl. So I used to go in Lidl. Now, the problem with Lidl and Aldi is when you go in, they have a thing called a middle aisle. And this middle aisle sells stuff that you don't need, you'll never use, but for some reason, if you're a bloke, you have to buy it. So I've bought countless stuff in that middle aisle. I went in and I've gone, I'm having a free charge. I'm going to buy just one piece of bread. I'm just going to buy one ice lolly. That's all I'm going to buy. I come out with a chainsaw, welding kit, soldering iron. I've never used any of these things. They're sat in my garage. I got a free charge, but spent £100. How does that work?
I had a similar disposition there with there's a shopping centre in Ireland in Kildare. It's Kildare Village Shopping Centre. It's one of those outlet shopping centres. It's a high-end outlet shopping centre. Whenever I charge there with my wife, I usually tend to come out with a good few things. I used to jokingly say it's the most expensive charger in the country. What I find interesting with the UK is and I hope that we're going to get them in Ireland, is the charging hubs. There's a good few of them in Scotland, and Nick mentioned the ones in Milton Keynes. That is absolutely key for EV adoption, and it's sorely missing in Ireland. Is multiple, basically a charging hub in key locations. We're probably still another year away from seeing one, and they'll probably be very Dublin centric in Ireland, but they're sorely missing.
Well, the best thing about the Milton Keynes one, it's situated at a bus depot, and on the you've got the hub. It's got a cover over it, like a petrol station.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously EV drivers are supposed to normally get wet when they plug a car in. We spend longer plugging the car in than someone takes filling the fuel, but we don't get a cover. Supposedly, according to Toyota, anyway, because we stand there with the plug as it fills up. But yeah, they've got a big cover over it. It's situated near a shop. It's situated with a toilet, so you can have a sandwich. You can go you can go to the toilet. You can have a rest break, and then come back to your car and drive off. So these hubs with 6, 7, 10, 12, 15 chargers all located in one location, it gives you two things. It gives you peace of mind that if you get there and 2 of the chargers are broken, 3 of them are being used, there's still plenty of redundancy there. And that's the main thing with hub. It's giving you the security that if you stop there, you're definitely getting a charge, no matter what. And the other benefit it gives you is that some of the hubs in Scotland, they've been really clever. So they've fitted 8 rapids, 3 22 kilowatt chargers, and then 4 7 kilowatt chargers. So when people get there, if they only want to do a slow charge, they plug at the slow chargers. If they want a rapid and they want to go quick, they go on that. If they've only got 22 kilowatt Zoe, rather than taking up a rapid charger, they can plug on the 22 kilowatt chargers. And giving people that choice at charging locations stops the faster, more expensive chargers being tied up by slower charging cars.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that actually might be worth mentioning with regards to Irish people traveling abroad, always have a backup. So when you're traveling abroad, whenever I do my planning, I usually plan on arriving at a charger with sort of like 25% left. And it reduces stress when you're on holiday, but I do appreciate what you're saying. It's nicer to arrive, it's more fulfilling to arrive at a charger with every single light blinking in your car and then plugging in and actually breathing a sigh of relief. Totally agree with you. But when you're on holiday and your wife is in the car who doesn't really like this particular kind of tension, it's better to arrive at a charger with 25% left.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. If you're stopping at a hub, you don't really need to worry about that redundancy because the redundancy is at the hub. So if you are traveling to the UK and you're looking at the charging location, if it's got 2 free chargers, you don't really need to worry because if they've got more than one charger at the site, that redundancy is there. That safety net is there. I often find that if I'm stopping at Polar chargers and I've pre-planned the app on the Polar Instant app, then you're pretty much safe. You know that they have a very high reliability rate. But at the same time, at the moment, they're all turned off because they're all at hotels, and because of COVID, all the hotels are shut. So they've shut all the chargers off.
What about queues for chargers? Is that an issue?
I've only ever queued for a charger twice. Once was the first year of fully charged, and the second was the second year at fully charged. Because you're going to the EV Mecca event of the year, and everyone who goes to EV Mecca arrived in their EV, and everyone who left EV Mecca left at the same time. We all roughly had the same size battery charge, and we all arrived at the charger roughly at the same time. That's the only time. I didn't, because what I did is I got to the charger and there was someone charging on it, and then there was someone parked next to it waiting, and then I was like, "How long have you got?" "Oh, I've got another 10 minutes, and I need a full charge. I need 40 minutes." And I looked at my car and I was like, "I've got 85-mile range, and my house is 87 miles away. Go on then, let's try it."
Of course.
It wasn't worth it wasn't worth me waiting. But I made it. I made it fine. The car wasn't too happy with me. It was flashing at me a bit. But yeah, it made it. But that's the only time I've ever stopped and waited for a charge.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Like the one thing, I haven't actually had to wait for a charger to be free in the UK. And when I do my planning, I do tend to plan along redundancy of the chargers, that in case the charger is broken, I have a backup either on site, or in the case of like Ecotricity chargers, sometimes across the motorway. But most of the Ecotricity sites have at least 2 chargers these days. I think it's mostly 3, sometimes 4.
Yeah. One thing, you're not really supposed to do this, but let's say you get to an Ecotricity charger and it's not working and you want to use the next one. Motorway service stations in the UK are linked by something called a service road that usually runs under the motorway. And if you can find where the staff service road is and ask a nice member of staff for the gate code, or even just drive, sometimes they're not even gated, and ask the nice staff member to give you the gate code, you can drive under the motorway to the other charger on the other side. You usually find a nice member of staff. If you say, "I've got an EV," and just lie to them, "I've only got 2 miles left. I can't make it to the other side of the motorway. Can I drive for your service road?" They'll normally let you.
Yeah.
When you want to talk about service stations and funny things, I have one instance. I think it was along the toll road around Birmingham. There's one Ecotricity site there, and I had it in my sat nav for my Renault Zoe, but because of the location on the parking area, the nearest road was actually the staff entrance at the back of the service centre. So it routed me off the toll motorway, which should have been a big red flag in my head, but it was early in the morning and I was half asleep. And by the time I actually got to the charger, according to my sat nav, all I had was a green field, and the actual charger was across the green field in the service station, and I was on the back of the hotel that was there at the staff entrance now. And I did exactly what you're saying. I actually grabbed one of the staff members who was just starting their shift, and I said, "Listen, my sat nav routed me here. Can you let me through this gate?" And she let me through the gate, and I managed to actually get to the charger. But it's worth noting that if the sat nav tells you to go off the motorway and it's not the service entrance, you're wrong.
So, Jan-Bart, maybe you can talk about what planning went into your first trip to the UK and more detailed information about how it actually went.
Yeah, well, the first time I went over, basically the only game in town was Ecotricity, and I used their website mostly for the planning. But these days, going to the UK, I would probably use either PlugShare or ZapMap, and you can probably plan your. I think PlugShare has a planning feature, and I think ZapMap these days you can probably plan a route as well. It'll tell you where the chargers are along the way. Sometimes you might have to sort of the thing in the UK is that service stations are usually about 30 miles apart, which isn't very far for an actual EV these days. So most of the time I ended up planning to stop somewhere. The next charger would be 30 miles away. The charger after that be about 60 miles away. I usually planned on doing a full charge on one of the service stations, skip the next one, and then go to the one after that. Yeah, I usually tend to just use PlugShare and ZapMap for the planning in the UK, at least. I don't know if you guys anything else.
I use ChargeMap.
ChargeMap, yeah, ChargeMap. I'm not sure. The thing with ZapMap is that ZapMap is directly tapped into a UK registry of chargers, and I think it tends to show chargers a little quicker in the UK, at least, than ZapMap does.
Yeah, I think ChargeMap's better for Europe,
yeah,
especially in countries like Belgium. PlugShare is terrible in places like Belgium. They use a lot more ChargeMap. In the UK, I use PlugShare quite a lot because people in the UK have really been quite proactive on updating PlugShare. But if you're wanting up to the minute status of the charge, like Jan said, ZapMap is a lot better.
Mm.
I prefer the charge routing planning service on PlugShare than I do on ZapMap.
Yeah,
But
I have to agree with you.
yeah, the best one I've used in the UK for route planning is one called WattsUp.
I think it's WattsUp,
Is it WattsUp?
as in WATTSUP.
Yes, it is. It's WATTSUP, and it's a Scottish company that made the app,
Mm-hmm.
and that is one of the best route planning apps for the UK I've ever used. It's brilliant.
It's the UK version of a better route planner, which is German, I think.
The interest for someone using ZapMap over the other apps, so stop me if I'm wrong, is that with ZapMap you can actually filter the charging network. So if you come from Ireland and limit yourself to a number of charging networks because you don't want to sign up to this or that service, that could be easier for the planning as well.
Yep, same with the WhatsApp app that I just gave you. The best thing about that app is you do the route plan and it will show you the route, and on the route it has the symbol of the company that own the charger, and you can just select that. You can just select those ones of all the ones you go down. So that for me has been my favorite route planning system. But again, you can do the same on ZapMap. The idea of the WhatsApp one is it's actually a built-in navigation on your phone, so you can just have it, stuck on your windscreen of your car and use it as a sat nav as you're driving, and it'll constantly update.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I think it actually has live charger status as well in certain networks, so that if a charger is either in use or in not available during your route, it'll auto adapt to go to the next one.
Yeah, it will. Yeah.
So that was it today. We had a great discussion about the charging networks and how to travel to the UK if you're going from Ireland. Thanks a lot, guys, for talk, especially you, Nick. So your EV channel is EV Nick.
Yeah, EV Nick. Nick with an N.
And yes. So thanks a lot. Have a look at the channel. It's great. And thanks to everybody. We will have another talk about charging and traveling abroad in a while. So stay tuned and thanks for watching.